You're how old? How to recharge, repair, and regenerate every cell in your body. By Care Pusick. That's me. This is my story. You're how old? We asked Richard incredulously when he mentioned he was 70. You've got to be kidding, I said. I was wondering if you were even 50 yet. Richard sat across the restaurant table from us. He was a true picture of vibrancy and health, energy exuding from every pore. He actually glowed when he told us he had journeyed back to health from near death. Well, it sure looks like you found the fountain of youth, said my husband Charles. I could certainly use some of that. Yes, couldn't we all, I added, in hopes that Richard would share his secret to reverse aging and to restore that glow of health that was so evident in him. I'm more than happy to share my story with you if you would like to hear it, he grinned. Ha! You bet I would. And so he began. My life changed sitting at a restaurant table similar to this 4 years ago. Years earlier, after an emergency trip to the hospital, I had a stent put in a totally blocked artery in the front of my heart. My doctor called me lucky, but my whole life began a downward descent. I was told I would be on drugs the rest of my life. And for the next 6 years, I felt worse, and with every doctor visit, the doctor added another dangerous drug to my growing drug list and upped the dosage of yet another. I had just come from a morning doctor's appointment with a prescription in hand for a new drug for new problems, high cholesterol and high triglycerides, and was on my way to have lunch with a dear friend, Russ, who I hadn't seen in years. Providence, serendipity, synchronicity, call it what you will, it was meant to be. I could tell by the look in his eyes that Russ was noticeably concerned about how bad I looked. When I had finished telling him about my downward health spiral, he jumped up and said, "I'll be right back," and returned holding a package containing a white oatmeal box labeled Tester, explained Richard. Russ told me he had just come from Federal Express to pick up the very first batch of a special product that he had grown and processed in Thailand, a product that could restore cellular energy. This may very well be just what you need, Russ said, and gave me the container, advising me to eat a teaspoon 3 times a day. Providence, serendipity, synchronicity, perfect timing, call it what you will, it was meant to be, and this is where my story really begins, beamed Richard. I had nothing to lose. I trusted my friend Russ implicitly, so I did what he told me to do. I ate the product religiously for a month, and then went to my scheduled blood test and doctor's appointment. To my great delight and my doctor's great shock, everything had improved greatly. My cholesterol had dropped 67 points, and I no longer needed that cholesterol drug prescription, which I had not taken to the drugstore yet. My triglycerides dropped from 131 to 99, and my LDL, HDL, which had not been in balance in about 10 years, were in balance. My liver enzymes, which had been rising since I began taking heart medications years ago, had also come into perfect balance, Richard concluded, all only after a month of eating my friend's amazing product. My doc asked me, "What did you do?" And I explained that I knew very little yet, but I was taking a functional food product that my friend was testing that could restore cellular vitality. "Well, get me some," my doctor commanded. And I'm thinking in my head, get me some too. But that's not the best part. So my regular doctor visits took a new turn. Instead of upping a dosage or adding a new drug to my list, he began reducing my dosage and taking me off the drugs on my list one by one until, after 18 months, I was off all of the medications. This is something my doctor said would never happen, but did, Richard explained with growing excitement. I was a whole new, younger, healthy person. I was feeling great again after all those years of feeling miserable. And all I wanted to do was share this stuff with the world. Wouldn't everyone want to know about this? What a gift I had been given. I just wanted to give that gift to others. And although Russ's company was open and thriving in many international markets with their other products, it was not yet open in the United States. So, I encouraged Russ to please open here with this new product so that I could share it with my friends and with anyone who wanted to reverse their aging conditions, continued Richard. And after much coaching, he agreed, and I became the first distributor in the United States. 28 years younger. I was so enthralled with Richard's story, I don't even remember eating lunch. But I do remember his story about going to an anti-aging convention in Las Vegas, where he and 4 of his friends who were eating the product had set up a booth to represent the company. Richard told of walking around the convention floor and being attracted to a doctor with a device that tested for biological age. And at the end of the convention, the doctor came to his booth to tell Richard that he had never seen anyone test like he did. In the 3,500 people he had tested at the convention, Richard tested with the greatest difference between biological age and chronological age. Actually, no one had ever tested better since he had bought his machine. What did that mean? It meant that his body was chronologically 70 years old, but the doctor's machine registered that his cells were testing at a biological age of 42 years old, a 28-year difference. Well, if that isn't true anti-aging, I don't know what is. And by the way, everyone from Richard's booth tested in the top 8 best results from 3,500 people at the convention. Meanwhile, I was doing the math in my head, and if this product worked as well for me as it had for Richard, my cells could anti-age to the health level of a 38-year-old. Well, that sure motivated me. Then I heard Richard also say that he and his group tested with the least free radical damage of anyone else at the convention as well. Okay, I believed that it had worked for him because I could see him sitting there with glowing vitality, and he told me amazing stories of other people he had shared the product with who had recovered from major illnesses. But how can a simple food reverse aging? How can cells anti-age? How does this really work? I asked Karen to explain how this works. Karen is my dear friend who cared enough about Charles and I to share this product with us and to invite us to have lunch with her friend Richard. Karen also has that special vital glow about her, and she also has miracle stories to tell about both her parents, whose symptoms from very major illnesses were totally reversed after eating the product for several months. First, she said, it is important to understand what causes aging, so you'll understand how this food can be a solution. Have you ever noticed how children and young people can have a sort of light about them? Karen asked. But then as most people grow older, it looks like their dimmer switch has been turned down, and they sort of lose energy and gray out. Every cell in the body has a battery, like a flashlight does, she explained. And when that battery gets low, the light gets dimmer and dimmer until we recharge it or it goes out. The battery in our cells is called the mitochondria. The mitochondrial battery needs real fuel on a regular basis to keep it charged and producing light energy, which is called ATP. ATP is the necessary fuel for every organ and system in our bodies. Without ATP energy, our cells, organs, and systems fatigue, become diseased, and die. It seems that around age 40 in most people, the battery has lost a lot of its charge. About 40 to 50%, I've heard. This is the age when most of us start noticing all those aches and pains. This is the age when most athletes retire because no matter how hard they work out, they just can't maintain the same muscle tone or endurance levels or recovery time. This is the age when wrinkles show up and sagging begins. Fatigue is normal and dis-eases begin showing up. You know all the signs. We call it aging. It begins in the cell, concluded Karen. Are your cellular batteries running low? Karen asked me if my cellular batteries were running low, and I said, I'm sure they are. I know that our foods are not what they were meant to be. Between depleted soils, pesticides, GMOs and chemicals, polluted waters and tainted air, processed foods, and terribly treated animals, it's probably a wonder we are as healthy as we are. All these degradations in our food have taken a great toll on our health. I'm sure our cells are not receiving the pure fuels they need to run perfectly. We are all aging. I certainly am. A recent university medical school study showed that nearly 80% of Americans, including children, have some level of insulin resistance, Karen said. That means that because of our modern lifestyle and standard American diet, our cells have been so damaged that they are even resistant to receiving the fuel they need to function properly. So where does that leave us, Karen asked me. Well, it leaves us with a population with endemic fatigue, pain, inflammation, fibromyalgia, cancer, obesity, diabetes, heart attacks, strokes, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and more, I replied. You're absolutely right, and here is why, Karen explained. We are eating an overabundance of sugars. It is hidden in nearly every processed food. 200 years ago, we consumed a mere 6 pounds of sugar a year per person. Today, we are averaging 156 pounds of sugar a year per person. And these are chemicalized, processed white sugars. Pure natural sugars or polysaccharides are necessary to fuel our mitochondria or cellular battery. But here is the big question. When a cell is damaged and insulin resistant, and the natural sugar fuels cannot enter the cells to create energy, then where do all those sugars go? I have no clue, but I bet it's not good, I said. No, it is not good at all. These sugars float around in the bloodstream and grab onto proteins and fats. This makes them too large to be used at the cellular level, even if they could get in. This is called glycation. Glycation is nothing but bad, she emphasized. When the glycated sugars lodge in the bloodstream, they can cause hardening of the arteries and heart problems. When they lodge in the brain, they can cause memory issues, learning problems, dementia. When they lodge in the skin, they cause wrinkles and all kinds of skin problems. Wherever they lodge, they can create serious problems. The more glycated sugars floating in our bloodstream, the more problems are created and the faster we seem to age, Karen concluded. Thus, all those diseases and problems you mentioned are created because our cells become damaged and insulin resistant and do not get enough fuel to create the light and life force for health. And the glycated sugars are creating havoc and premature aging. It's a painfully deadly cycle. So what is the solution? I understand our cells are starving, I agreed. So tell me about the solution. Tell me how to do what you and Richard did. I want to look and feel younger. Heck, I want to be younger. But most of all, I want to help my husband reverse his painful aging process. So what is the solution? Karen replied, our solution lies in a powerful, cutting-edge, functional superfood product that is truly like no other. This is probably the purest and most powerful food I've ever put into my body. Let me tell you first where this food is grown today, Karen began. This ancient strain of heirloom purple rice is growing in a pristine valley in highly mineralized soils, which are totally untouched by chemicals, pesticides, and GMOs. It is tended by expert, loving hands, watered by crystal clean mountain waters, harvested at their peak perfection, and carried out by hand because trucks are not allowed into this sacred valley in Thailand. That's a far cry from the way our foods are grown here, I thought, but I believe it's certainly how it is meant to be. I want to eat it already. This is the same forbidden rice that was only fed to the emperors of 6 of the most powerful dynasties, exclaimed Karen. It was forbidden to the commoners because of its powerful anti-aging and strength-producing properties. Historical records indicate that much of the strength and power of Genghis Khan and his mighty armies came from the consumption of this same forbidden rice. And then this strain became lost in history until now. This high-frequency heirloom purple rice is the basis for our ultimate functional food, Karen continued. But here is where the micronizing technology tomorrow meets this powerful ancient food and transforms it even further into what doctors and nutritionists are calling the most important discovery of the century for health and longevity. Here's the high technology part of this Fountain of Youth product. I learned that the purple rice is put into a one-of-a-kind, multi-million-dollar milling machine, which is able to separate out the heart of the rice, the endosperm, which contains all the ancient and perfect polysaccharides, sugars, and all of the polypeptides, amino acids, the body's building blocks, as well as the outside royal purple covering of the rice, which contains anthocyanins, super antioxidants 1,600 times more potent than blueberries. The remaining parts of the rice, which are not as valuable, are discarded from this product. I was amazed to hear it takes more than 60 pounds of purple rice to make only 1 pound of this powerful product, because only the vital parts are kept. Then this unique milling machine micronizes the vital rice until the molecules are so very small they form a highly charged alpha-glucan chain that can easily pass through a cell membrane as fuel without having to even be digested. Nearly 99% of this amazing functional food can enter the cell and serve as super fuel for pure cellular energy, even when the cell is insulin resistant. Cellular enlightenment. I watched Karen as she took a container of the purple rice powder and shook some out onto her hand and licked it. She said, "Here, put some of this powder in your mouth and it will go immediately to your cells, like arrows of perfect fuel for your mitochondrial battery. So it can then produce ATP, light energy, which is absolutely necessary for health and regeneration." I did. It actually felt energized. Every system in your body requires and thrives on ATP, light energy. ATP creates that glow and vitality as each system in your body begins receiving the light energy it needs to power up, repair, regenerate, and function at its highest level. This is the food for the new earth. This is the food for anti-aging. This is the food that can turn your light back on. "Are you ready?" Karen asked. "I am so ready," I replied. "How do I begin?" She explained that I can put the powder in water and drink it, make a porridge out of it, mix it in sugar-free yogurt, sprinkle it on my salads and veggies. It's best to drink it on an empty stomach. Second best if you eat it with natural foods that contain no sugars. Or I can even get it in capsules, which for many people is the easiest way. Charles and I have been joyously married for nearly 40 years, and during that whole time, I have studied energy medicine, natural healing, and nutrition. And I'm sure we've taken more supplements and eaten more weird foods in search of health and anti-aging than more than 99% of the population. With all that we do nutritionally, I know now that so much of it is not even getting into the cells for fuel. After seeing what the rice products have done for Richard and having Karen share her personal stories and her understanding of the products, I was hoping this purple rice was really the answer to our prayers for living longer, healthier lives together. Our story begins. We began by mixing a teaspoon of the powder in warm water and drinking it on an empty stomach 3 times a day. We were told this is the way the purists eat it. I noticed my energy levels picking up, and I began riding my bike more. I liked the way I felt. It was very subtle for me at first, kind of like my cells were singing softly. Although Charles was struggling to drink the powder and water, and his blood sugar levels were staying the same, he kept drinking it. After a few weeks, his friends started saying that he looked better. The color of his face was changing from slightly yellow-gray to becoming pinker and brighter, and he was sleeping better. I was too. And he was eliminating so much better. I began putting the powder into my green smoothies, which Charles wouldn't drink. I also put the powder in a big glass salt shaker and began sprinkling it on our salads and veggies, which Charles did like. I even began carrying a shaker in my purse, so when we would go out to dinner. It's amazing how many people would ask me what I was sprinkling, and I would reply that it's the micronized heart of purple rice. It delivers pure fuel to my cells for anti-aging and regeneration. It quickly began getting people's attention, and the first person to join me in eating the rice was my friend Deborah from Philadelphia, because she saw me sprinkling it on my food in a restaurant. Then I began carrying flyers about purple rice in my purse because so many people were asking me about it. Now I always have a few hard copies of this book wherever I go. It really is working, and our blood tests prove it. We had blood tests taken a month after we began our new purple rice regimen. I would highly recommend this when someone starts on the product, even though ours was scheduled by accident. I guess it was not an accident. Just like it was no accident that Russ had picked up the first batch of the product before going to lunch with Richard. Please compare the new results with our last blood test, I asked Dr. T when he began looking at the results of our recent blood tests. We're trying something new for anti-aging. He looked at my new blood test. He looked at my old blood test. He looked over the top of his glasses and said, "Your cholesterol dropped by 73 points. What are you taking?" I was thrilled. I had no idea that all this was changing in my body. Dr. T had been wanting to put me on cholesterol medications for 2 years, and I had been refusing and trying natural alternatives to no avail. But this little rice powder had brought my levels to normal in 1 month. Yay! And that was not all. I had 5 blood markers that had been too high, and they were now all normal. Charles' blood work also showed significant changes in a month, with his cholesterol and glucose level both coming down. Actually, nearly everything on his chart that was too high had started to come down. His blood sugars were not normal in 1 month, but they were on their way down. And after they had been on a slow, steady incline. In fact, after 3 months of eating the micronized purple rice, Charles' morning blood sugars went from 200 to 110. Although I was told that many people notice significant changes in their blood sugar right away, I heard a story about a woman who was concerned that her blood sugar had not budged in 60 days. But after she went to have a colonoscopy, the doctor sat her down and explained that he had found a large area of scar tissue in her colon, which indicated to him that there had been a large mass there, which had probably come out recently without her even noticing it. The body uses this energy where it is needed most first. The body's infinite wisdom and 1 month marvels. I truly believe that the body, in its infinite wisdom, is using this high-frequency food wherever it is most critical to our well-being first. My friend Bonnie called me to tell me that her sweetie, Ron, had been feeling a little dizzy a couple of weeks after starting on the rice. She took his blood pressure. It was low. His doctor took him off his blood pressure medication because his blood pressure is now normal. Bonnie's blood pressure is normal now too, and it was higher than Ron's to start with. Bonnie also giggles, telling me about things going better in the bedroom. Yeah, they were both sleeping sounder and other good things. Bonnie's a colon hydrotherapist who's been working with Charles for 2 years. She began on the foods when she saw the tremendous changes in Charles from week to week. Now she is recommending the rice to her clients. My friend Jeff told me that he ran out of his medication for acid reflux and forgot to get more because he no longer had any symptoms to remind him. He also has had bouts with extreme swelling and heat in his feet for years. Not anymore. It's gone, he cheered when he saw me last week. This week he told me his blood pressure is down and he is sleeping sound. When I talked with my friend Dr. Tiana, she was struggling with a skin issue on her face that her dermatologist said needed to be removed right away. As a naturopathic physician, she had been treating it naturally, but she was not seeing any improvement. And when I told her about the micronized purple rice, she knew she had to try it. Within 3 weeks, she was noticing changes. It's not like an angry red volcano anymore. It's pink and flat and calming down. I showed my doctor and he said what I was doing was working, so he no longer wanted to cut it out. He just wanted to keep watching it. Dr. Tiana is now recommending the purple rice to her patients, and holding workshops explaining how the alpha-glucan chains of polysaccharides and polypeptides fuel the mitochondria of the cells to release ATP, light energy, so the body can heal itself. Champ, our granddaughter Brianna's 16-year-old blind dachshund, is now getting the purple rice sprinkled on his food with each meal. After only a few weeks, Champ has more energy and alertness. His stool is well formed after several years of problems, and his seriously bad breath is gone. As a student in pharmacy school, Brianna is finding these results pretty darn amazing.